Hello, and welcome to another Algebra 1 lesson. This is lesson 7.4. Our objective, use the zero product property to solve equations. Using the zero product property, polynomial is in factored form when it is written as the product of factors. Standard form is descending order by exponents. Factored form is when it's written as something times something. It's written as a product. When one side of an equation is a polynomial in factored form and the other side is 0, use the zero product property to solve the polynomial equation. The solution of a polynomial equation are also called roots. Zero product property. If the product of two real numbers is 0, then at least one of the numbers is 0. If A and B are real numbers and A times B is 0, well, then A has to be B or A has to be 0 or B has to be 0. One of these must be true. And oftentimes you're going to be finding two solutions. Example 1, solve each equation. We have stuff times stuff equals 0. The only way that can be true is for one of those factors to be 0. We're going to find two answers. 2x would equal 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. So A equals 0 or B equals 0. We have to write them out both. Stuff times stuff equals 0. One of them has to be 0. X is being multiplied by 2, so divide both sides by 2. X equals 0. Now solve this one. What do we need to do to both sides? Undo subtraction with addition. So we're going to add 4. We get x equals 4. So the answer is x equals 0 or x equals 4. Both of them will make the equation true. If we put in a 0, we get 0 times negative 4. That equals 0. If we put in a 4, 4 minus 4 is 0, and then 0 times anything over here would still be 0. Try the next one. We have stuff times stuff equals 0. So write down each one of the factors equal to 0, and then solve each of these equations. Solve for x. X equals 3 or x equals 9. You can also write it like this. Notice there's no parentheses though, they're both x's. We'd only put parentheses around an x and y pair. So x equals 3 and x equals 9. When two or more roots of an equation are the same number, the equation has repeated roots. Oftentimes we'll call them double roots if it happens twice. Example 2, solving polynomial equations. Solve each equation. So we're still using our zero product property. Write each one of the factors equal to 0. 2x plus 7 equals 0. And then the second factor is 2x minus 7 equals 0. Solve for x. On your mark, get set, go. It's okay to leave it as a fraction. X equals -7/2. Now solve the other one. And there's our two answers for number 2A. Number 2B, we have x minus 1 squared. Remember when we have the squared on the outside of the parentheses, it really means x minus 1 times x minus 1. That this is being multiplied by itself. But what happens if we write down each one of these factors equal to 0, we get the same answer twice. This is a repeated root. Still need to solve for x. What's x going to be? X equals x equals 1. So there's only one answer, but it's a double root or a repeated root. And C. This time we have 1, 2, 3 factors. We have to solve each one of them. I have to solve x plus 1 equals 0. We need to solve x minus 3 equals 0. And the third factor, x minus 2 equals 0. So solve each one of those, write down your answers. What do we get for this one? We're going to subtract 1 from both sides, so x will equal -1. This one, add 3 to both sides, so x equals 3. And what about this last one? If we add 2 to both sides, we get x equals 2. So let's write our three answers: -1, 3, and 2. Those are our three answers that make the original equation true. And that's example 2. When we get to the end of the lesson, let me know if you need me to go back to any of these. Just tell me which number. Factoring polynomials using the GCF. To solve a polynomial equation using the zero product property, you may need to factor the polynomial or write it as a product of other polynomials. Look for the greatest common factor of the terms of the polynomial. This is a monomial that divides evenly into each term. Example 3. Factor out the greatest common monomial factor from 4x to the 4th plus 24x cubed. When factoring out the GCF, you have to look at the numbers and then the variables. What is the largest number that divides evenly into 4 and 24? 4. 4 divides evenly into both of them. And then they both have an x, so we need an x in our GCF. And then we're going to use the biggest thing that will divide evenly into both, which actually turns out to be the smaller of the two exponents. So our GCF is 4x cubed. Now, we want to write it as a product. So we want to write it as 4x cubed times something. And for it to be equal to this original expression, it's going to have to be something plus something. So what we're really doing here Now that we know the GCF is we are dividing. 4 divided by 4 is 1. X to the 4th divided by x cubed is x. Now divide 24x cubed by 4x cubed. 24 divided by 4 is 6. X cubed divided by x cubed. Those cancel each other out. So this is our factored form of this expression. To check it, think about multiplication. 4x cubed times another x gives us 4x to the 4th. 4x cubed times 6 gives us 24x cubed. So you can check factoring by multiplying. And that's example 3. You hanging in there? I hope so. Solve equations by factoring. Okay, this is the reason why we factored, is so that we can write this as stuff times stuff equals 0, and then solve it using the zero product property. We need to factor out the GCF. What divides evenly into 2 and 8? Do they both have an x? Yes, they do. So there's our GCF. Now, divide each one of these terms by 2x. 2x squared divided by 2x is x, because 2 divided by 2 is 1. That goes invisible. X squared divided by an x. X squared divided by an x. Well, that's x times x divided by x. One of the x's from the top cancels out one of them on the bottom. We end up with an x left. So x squared divided by x is just x. And 8x divided by 2x. The x's cancel out. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Remember, our factored form has to be equal to the original. Okay, we're good there. Now that it's factored, use your zero product property. Write down each one of the factors equal to 0 and solve for x. Undo multiplication with division. Undo addition with subtraction. And there's our 2 answers for this one. Okay, 4b. This one even has one more step than the last one. Not everything's on one side. We need everything on one side, 0 on the other, before we can factor it. So to create a 0 on this side, I'm going to subtract 15n. Whatever I do on the right side of the equation, I also must do on the left side of the equation. We want it in standard form, biggest exponents first. Okay, now it looks more like number 4a did. Now we can take out the GCF. What divides evenly into 6 and 15? Do they both have an n? Yes, they do. Now divide each of them by 3n, put that in the parentheses, so that we have stuff times stuff equals this. So 6n squared divided by 3n, and negative 15n divided by 3n. Write it down. Did you get it? All right. Now it's in factored form. Now we use our zero product property that says if stuff times stuff equals 0, then one of those has to be 0 to make the equation true. And both answers work. So we need them both. All right, solve for n. Zero divided by anything is 0. Oh, we got more work to do over here. Undo subtraction with addition. N is being multiplied by 2. How do we undo multiplication? With division. So divide by 2. Don't worry that it's not going to go in evenly. That's okay. No worries. 5 divided by 2. Just leave it a fraction. 5 halves. So we've got n equals 0, n equals 5 halves, and those are our two answers, for example, 4b. Monitoring progress. Let's try a few more. Good news. 1, 2, and 3, these are already factored. So we just write down each one of the factors equal to 0 and solve these smaller equations. 3t equals 0, t plus 2 equals 0. Just writing down each one of the factors equal to 0, then solve. We're going to get 2 answers here, 2 answers here, 2 answers here. Pause your video, give it a try, so we can see how you're doing. On your mark, get set, go. Pause your video. Do 1, 2, and 3. Don't unpause until you're ready to check. Check 1 and 2. Make sure you've done 3. All right, there's the answers to 1, 2, and 3 for monitoring progress. Let's see what's next. Factor out the greatest common monomial factor. So our greatest common factor. What divides evenly into 8 and 24? And do they both have the same variable? Okay, give it a try. How'd you do on number 7? Try number 8. Solve the equation, check your solutions. So we're going to factor out the GCF like we did on number 7, but then we have equals 0, so we're going to keep going and solve. You can only solve when there's an equal sign. Notice this one didn't have an equals anything, so we couldn't solve that if we wanted to. All right, number 8. Factor out the GCF. And solve. All right, make sure your video's paused. Try 9 and 10 because those answers are going to pop up really quickly. Good time to pause your video if you want to give it a try. On number 10, make sure you put it in standard form first. Everything on one side, 0 on the other. Then factor it. and finish solving. So number 10 is 0 and 1/2. Now, it said to check your solutions. You just want to check and make sure that if you put in one of the numbers in the entire equation for x, that you get the same thing. You get the same thing on the left and the right. So if we put in a 0, that'd be 4 times 0 is 0. Over here we'd have 2 times 0, that's 0, so that one checks. If I put in 1/2, one half squared is 1/4. 4 times 1/4 is actually 1. And then if we do 1/2, 2 times 1/2, that's also 1. So we would get 1 equals 1. Well, that's true also. And here we'd get 0 minus 0 equals 0. If we put in a 3, we get 3 squared is 9 times 3 is 27. And then you put in a 3 here, you would get 27 minus 27. Well, that equals 0, so that checks, that checks. Putting in a 0, 0 plus 0 is 0. Put in a -5. For A, we would get -5 squared plus 5 times -5, because I'm using -5 right now, equals 0. Well, this is 25. 5 times -5 is -25. Does that equal 0? Yes, it does. So remember, the solution to the equation is the value of the variable that makes the equation true. Okay, so we found them all, and they all check. And that was monitoring progress problems 8, 9, and 10. Exit ticket. Write a polynomial equation that has -6 and 4 as solutions. So you want the answers to be -6 and 4. And I want you to build the polynomial. So you're going backwards. If your answers were -6 and 4, what problem would it have come from? Give it a try. See if you can figure it out. We'll talk about it during class. And this is what we need to know for Big Ideas Assignment 7.4. Hope you're hanging in there. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.